Have you ever whiny sat quietly in the night and wondered, what is my body trying to say? Every time I masturbate, something so personal, so silent, yet it might be a gentle warning, or perhaps a way the body is trying to heal itself. Isn't it true that every time you wake up in the middle of the night to urinate, you feel your body isn't quite the same as before? A faint pressure in the lower belly, a slight delay, when the stream isn't as strong as it used to be. Is it simply aging, or is there something deeper happening inside the prostate, that quiet companion we often forget to listen to? If any part of that question resonates with you, please leave a comment so I know you're listening and that neither of us is alone in this. And if this message feels worth reflecting on, I invite you to subscribe. Not just to follow a channel, but to walk together, gently with understanding, as we explore and care for our health one step at a time. Have you ever stood still in front of the mirror and quietly wondered, what's really changing inside my body every time I masturbate? It's a question that's rarely spoken out loud, but for many older men, it lingers beneath the surface, like a quiet, persistent current flowing deep within. That night, Mr. Thomas, 73 years old, woke up at 2 a.m. No traffic sounds, no voices calling his name, just that familiar urge to urinate, as on so many recent nights. He stepped slowly out of bed, fingers tracing the wall, pausing briefly in front of the bathroom mirror. The soft yellow light fell on his silver hair and the fine lines around his eyes. He looked at himself. A man who once held up a whole family, who once climbed rooftops to make repairs, who once drove through the night so his daughter could take an early exam. Now standing there, hands slightly trembling, as a quiet question stirred inside his chest. Am I still healthy? Or are those quiet moments of release lately hinting at something deeper going on inside? Something I haven't yet noticed? Back in his room, he opened a drawer and pulled out a small notebook. It was his health journal, a habit he'd started after his last routine checkup 3 months ago. No one told him to write anything down, but he believed if he learned to listen to his body, he might understand himself better than any doctor ever could. He flipped to a blank page and wrote a few simple lines. Nighttime urination 2 times. Post-ejaculation, tired, slight pressure in lower abdomen. Sleep, restless. Each entry was steady, like breathing. Not meant to be perfect, just true. He'd never brought this up with his children or grandchildren, not because he felt ashamed, but because he didn't want to bother them. Sometimes aging teaches us silence, not because we feel any less important, but because we don't want to become a burden. Yet what troubled him most wasn't the tiredness. It was the quiet changes. In the past, after masturbating, he'd feel relaxed. Sleep came easily. Now his heart beat a little faster, his head felt slightly dizzy, and sometimes he had to sit for a long while before drifting back to sleep. So he began to wonder, could something be happening inside his prostate, that silent companion he'd ignored for so many years? Is masturbation still safe at this age? Or is his body whispering a signal that deserves attention? These questions didn't frighten him. They simply reminded him that his body was still alive, still changing, still worthy of care. And if you, our dear older friend watching this video, have ever felt something similar to what Mr. Thomas experienced, please leave a comment below. You don't need to share everything. Even just a single line is enough to let us know that you are listening to your own body and that you are not alone. And if this story has made you pause, even just for a moment, I invite you to subscribe, not just to follow a channel, but to walk together gently so that every time we appear on your screen, it's a soft reminder. Health is not defined by age, but by the depth of understanding, one quiet moment at a time. Since that night, Mr. Thomas began paying closer attention to the small signals his body was sending. He no longer saw masturbation as something separate, silent, or fleeting. Instead, it became a quiet conversation with himself and with his prostate, that loyal companion he had unknowingly carried for so many years. For the first time, he noticed something. After each ejaculation, he felt lighter, not just emotionally, but physically. A subtle release in his lower abdomen, a noticeable ease in the usual urge to urinate. He had once read that this was called prostate drainage, or relieving internal blockage. Something small perhaps, but quietly helpful in reducing inflammation and internal pressure. He thought to himself, so, my body still knows how to adjust, as long as I don't ignore it. The second time he realized, sleep had something to do with it too. On some nights after masturbating, he drifted off to sleep with ease. But on others, his heart beat a little faster, sleep was harder to find, and he sometimes felt tired instead of relaxed. After jotting things down for a few days, a pattern emerged. On nights when he stayed up too late, had salty food, or drank tea after 6 p.m., his body responded differently. It wasn't the act of release that caused the fatigue, but rather how he had taken care of his body beforehand. That discovery brought him a sense of relief and clarity. The third time he paid attention to his urine stream, it wasn't as strong as before, and at times it split into 2 streams. After ejaculation, he often felt the urge to urinate right away, but couldn't go as easily as he wanted. He'd been worried until he read that the prostate sits close to the bladder, and after contracting, the body sometimes needs a little time to restore order. So now, instead of panicking, he simply sat down, took a breath, and waited a few quiet minutes before heading to the bathroom. Such a small shift, but it helped him feel in control again. The fourth time, it was his emotions that shifted. One night after masturbating, he felt an unexpected emptiness. Not because of the physical act, but because he remembered the years when his wife was still beside him. He missed the way she'd smile at him as he awoke, the comfort of holding someone close. His body was one part of the moment, but memory and tenderness quietly returned too. He smiled gently, turned to a new page in his notebook, and wrote, "Tonight I felt a little lonely, but I also felt warm." The fifth time, he came across a study that said testosterone levels in older men may temporarily dip after ejaculation. It made sense, explaining why he sometimes felt a bit sluggish afterward. But he wasn't worried, because he had already started taking 15-minute morning walks, added leafy greens to his meals, and began sleeping earlier. Just a few weeks in, his body felt noticeably stronger. No medicine, no big changes, just awareness and patience. The sixth time, something became beautifully clear. Each time he carved out a few moments for himself, whether it was jotting down a short journal entry or simply listening to how his body felt after release, he began to feel valuable. Not like a retired old man, but like a man learning to slow down, to understand his body more deeply, and to love himself gently again. After weeks of journaling, observing, and quietly listening to his body, Mr. Thomas no longer feared the changes. In fact, he felt more at peace. It was like watching the rain fall gently on the old porch roof, a quiet knowing that the season had shifted and that the morning backaches weren't anyone's fault. Just a gentle sign that he had lived through many meaningful years. He no longer felt the need to hide or avoid the topic of masturbation. No longer felt ashamed of waking in the night to urinate, because now he understood. These weren't signs of being past his prime. They were signs of life, of a body still moving, still adapting, still speaking, in the most honest way it knew how. One morning as he poured tea, Mr. Thomas glanced at the wooden chair by the window, the one where his wife used to sit, knitting every afternoon. That space was empty now, but it didn't feel sad, because he realized the changes in his body hadn't taken away the memories. They'd brought them even closer. He may not have been as strong as he once was, but he didn't feel weaker. If anything, each moment he listened to his body made him feel more whole, less rushed, less careless, and more grateful for even the sensations he once found inconvenient. One quiet weekend afternoon, his grandson Liam ran up behind him and hugged him tightly, asking, "Grandpa, why do you write so much in that notebook?" Mr. Thomas smiled, gently patting the boy's head. "I'm learning to understand myself better, so I can stay around longer, for you." That wasn't just an answer for a child. It was a reminder to himself that we don't need to race against aging. We just need to walk with it, slowly, mindfully, and with love. The changes in our bodies, if seen through the lens of fear, can feel like a burden. But when viewed with understanding, they become a gift that invites us to slow down, to pay attention, and to remember that there is still so much within us worth caring for. Mr. Thomas began to see things more clearly. Fatigue wasn't the enemy. It was a quiet call to rest. Emptiness wasn't a sign of loneliness. It was a gentle nudge to reconnect. And taking care of himself was never selfish. It was an act of kindness, not only to his own body, but to the loved ones who quietly watched over him every day. If you, our dear listener, feel even a little resonance with this story, please don't hesitate to leave a comment below. We read every word, because to us, they're not just letters on a screen, but the heartbeat of real people walking this journey together. And if you found this story gentle yet meaningful, we invite you to share it with a friend, a loved one, or someone you believe might need a quiet reminder to listen to themselves with patience, tenderness, and a little more love. After learning to accept the changes in his body as a natural part of aging, Mr. Thomas didn't stop there. He began choosing to walk alongside his body, not with grand gestures, but through small, simple acts. That quietly made a real difference. Each morning, instead of turning on the TV the moment he opened his eyes, he spent 3 quiet minutes by the window, sipping warm water and taking slow, deep breaths. A simple habit, yet it helped him begin the day feeling grounded, not rushed. A doctor had once told him, "Caring for your prostate doesn't require anything complicated. What matters is consistency." And Mr. Thomas believed that. One of the first changes he made was adjusting the frequency of ejaculation, not according to a rigid schedule, but based on how his body felt. Sometimes once a week, sometimes twice, as long as it left him feeling good, not tired and able to sleep afterward. That was enough. He called it listening to my own rhythm. No forcing, no hiding. Just a quiet way to stay connected between body and emotion. His diet also began to shift, gently. No strict restrictions, but he started eating less red meat and added more greens, especially broccoli, cauliflower, and tomatoes. Each morning he drank a glass of warm water mixed with a spoon of olive oil, a tip from his friend Walter, age 78, who still moved like a man in his 50s. At night, he avoided strong tea or coffee. He'd noticed that drinking too much fluid near bedtime led to more nighttime trips to the bathroom. And just by changing that one thing, the number of times he woke in the night dropped significantly. As for exercise, he didn't jog or go to the gym. Instead, each morning, he took a slow 15-minute walk around the garden, gently engaging his pelvic floor muscles, a technique his doctor had once shown him. At first, it felt strange, but after just a few weeks, he could feel the difference. His body grew stronger. The tension in his lower abdomen after ejaculation eased. And most importantly, he felt more confident in his own rhythm of life. He also kept one special habit, writing a body journal each night. Nothing long, nothing fancy, just a few short lines, noting how he felt after masturbation, what he ate that day, how he slept, not to judge himself, but to honor life, while he could still feel the small shifts within. If you're listening now and wondering, could I really do this too? Please remember, Mr. Thomas didn't start with anything big. Just a warm glass of water in the morning, one walk around the garden, one small page to reflect on the day, tiny steps, but each one bringing him closer to understanding himself. One quiet afternoon, Mr. Thomas sat in his wooden chair by the window. A soft breeze passed through the maple trees in the yard, casting gentle shadows across the open pages of his health journal. Beside him, little Liam, his 8-year-old grandson, was busy drawing a paper airplane. "Grandpa," the boy suddenly looked up. "Why do you write so much?" Mr. Thomas smiled. His wrinkled hands gently set the pen down as he replied, "I write to remind myself that my body is still alive, and so that one day when you're older, you might understand how I learned to care for myself, with love." That wasn't a lesson for his grandson. It was a quiet reminder to himself that health isn't just a medical condition, it's something woven into our memories, our loved ones, and the small rhythms of everyday life. Now, each time he stepped out into the garden for his morning walk, Mr. Thomas no longer thought about numbers or age. He walked as if having a conversation with his own body. Each slow step, each steady breath was a quiet thank you to the body that had carried him faithfully for over 70 years. Some mornings he would walk and remember how in his youth he had taken his health for granted, how he once pushed his body too hard without ever stopping to listen. But now he cared for himself not out of fear of illness, but because he wanted to be fully present, for family dinners with his grandson, for birthday celebrations with his daughter, for one more warm hug before bedtime. Once, a young nurse at the clinic asked him, "Mr. Thomas, you seem so healthy. Why do you keep such detailed records?" He smiled and said, "Because I don't just live for myself. I live so that my grandson sees growing older doesn't mean giving up." People often say, protecting the prostate is protecting your health. But to Mr. Thomas, it meant something more. It was about preserving a quiet sense of dignity, not for the world to see, but for the belief he held in himself. It was about holding on to life in the tiniest details: a full night's sleep, a night without waking, a peaceful morning that began without rush. And most of all, it was about staying connected to himself, to the memory of the woman he had loved, and to the family that was still growing day by day. Mr. Thomas's journal was no longer just filled with health notes. It now included pages written especially for his grandson, a kind of spiritual legacy he hoped to pass on. Dear Liam, if one day you notice your body changing, don't be afraid. Don't feel ashamed. Don't hide it. Just listen, the way I've learned to listen to myself. Because the body never betrays us. Sometimes it just needs us to pause so we can hear what truly matters. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to a journey that may not have been perfect, but was filled with honesty and heart. If Mr. Thomas's story reminded you of yourself or someone you love, we invite you to leave a comment below. Every word matters because your voice is part of this journey too. And if this video touched you in some way, please share it as a small gift for someone who might also be learning to accept, adjust, and love their body a little more each day. Because even as time goes on, kindness and self-care will always be the most beautiful gifts we can offer ourselves and those we hold dear. A life message. Dear respected friend, perhaps you've experienced sleepless nights because of frequent urination. Perhaps after each time you've masturbated, you've quietly asked yourself, what's changing inside my body? Perhaps you've held back from sharing, afraid no one would understand, believing that old age is a time to stay silent. But if Mr. Thomas's story felt even a little like your own, please allow us to offer a gentle whisper, like one your body itself might be trying to say. That you still have so much worth holding on to, not just your blood pressure or your prostate or your sleep, but your beautiful memories, your lasting connections, and a life path that continues, even if the pace has slowed just a little. Mr. Thomas didn't begin with anything grand, just a glass of warm water in the morning, a small journal to write how he felt that day, a slow walk around the garden, not needing anyone to join him, just sunshine, wind, and a few deep breaths. Those small changes were his way of saying to himself, I'm still here. I'm still listening to me. And you can begin too, today. You don't need much, just 3 quiet minutes in the morning. Sit still, drink a small sip of water, listen to your heartbeat, breathe in deeply, and exhale slowly. Or write a few lines in that old notebook about a feeling in your body, a dream from the night before, or a funny little story your grandchild told you. Because caring for your health isn't only a medical task, it's an act of love for yourself and for those who still need you fully present. We understand there are moments when you feel alone, when your children are busy and the ticking of the clock becomes your only companion at night. Moments when changes in your body make you feel uncertain, hesitant, even ashamed. But please remember, there is no such thing as being past your time. There are only rhythms. waiting to be heard not with fear, but with tenderness. Aging doesn't take away your worth. It invites you to live more deeply, more slowly, and more completely. Protecting your prostate isn't just about preserving health. It's about preserving a quiet kind of strength, the belief in yourself. It's about preserving life in the tiniest of details. A peaceful night's sleep, a gentle release without discomfort, a joyful meal shared with your loved ones. And it's about preserving connection between you and the people who love you, between a quiet grandfather and the curious grandchild who once asked, "Why do you write so much, Grandpa?" Between a husband who once loved and the wife who now lives only in memory. If you're still here reading this, thank you. Your presence, however quiet, is still a beautiful gift. To yourself, to your family, and to us, the ones who are here to listen to you with full respect. Please feel free to leave a comment if Mr. Thomas's story touched something in your heart. Even a simple line, "I'm listening," that's enough to let us know you're still here, still living, and still meaningful. And if this video brought you warmth, please share it with your partner, a neighbor, or a grandchild caring for their aging parent. Because sometimes a simple story is enough to change the way an entire generation sees aging. Thank you for living, for enduring, and for continuing. We're here to walk with you one gentle step at a time.